number one take coming out of Myles Garrett now joining this Rams defense with a bunch of other studs on it is what and why?
You can't say that now in June you're going to look at a piece of paper and find a team that is better than the Rams. Now, what does that mean once the games start playing and there's other factors, injuries, and all of those things? There's so many variables. I mean, nothing. But right now, this is the best team in the National Football League. They were Super Bowl favorites before they added Myles Garrett to this team. To me, this is a special trade. I think even for me personally, I was in Cleveland Myles' rookie year when he got there, and the slogan on our team at that time from Hugh Jackson was "Embrace the suck." We knew what it was going to be coming off a 1-15 season, and then we went 0-16
I was
that
going to
season.
say, you did. You did.
Yes,
I hate
exactly.
to say that. I'm not
We
trying
did
to be
that
a
well.
jerk. But
So for Myles, and he's played in 3 playoff games throughout his 9 years, but he's done so much damage on teams that weren't able to get over the hump or even get close to where they wanted to get. So for him personally, you come into the league on a bad team with a Hall of Fame player like Joe Thomas, who you saw and probably got to go against every single day in practice. And you saw a guy that finished his last game against the Titans when he got injured in a Hall of Fame career, never getting to see that type of team success. So now you fast forward for Myles, 9 years of that. Now you get an opportunity to go play in 7 primetime games, and you get to chase a Lombardi trophy. So to me, this is special. This is a Rams defense that fell apart towards the end of the season, but was at the top of the league when you look at pressure, sacks, and all of those things. And now you've just added the Defensive Player of the Year along with the MVP from a year ago. So this is an extremely dangerous team right now with this type of move. Sucks they had to give up Jared Verse, who I think is a fantastic player. But when you get a guy like Myles Garrett on your defense, with what they've added in the secondary with the trade of Trent McDuffie and adding Jalen Watson, like you've completely changed your defense and how you're going to be able to attack your opponents.
you played in the NFL for a long time. You know a ton of people in the league. You're a great person to answer this question, right? I have an idea, but I was never in those rooms. I was not in that locker room. So if you're, and I guess you could apply this to literally any of the other 31 teams, but specifically, let's talk the Niners, the Seahawks, let's even say the Eagles, like the great teams in the NFC right now. They see this, Myles Garrett joining the Rams. What do you think they're thinking in that moment and in the days that have passed since?
How the hell are we going to block all of these guys up front? People are mentioning Aaron Donald coming out of retirement on that team as well. But I think whenever you're in a division or you're in the NFC, whatever you're preparing for an opponent, you don't get into the things that we love to talk about in the media, where we start talking about how unbelievably talented this team is. And all you're thinking is X's and O's. If you're Mike McDonald, you're like, all right, how do we neutralize Myles Garrett by also giving attention to Byron Young and now Kobe Turner in the middle? What are the things we're going to have to do? Do we want to run the ball directly at Myles to try to tire him out and make him have to play in the run game? Like all of those type of things is what's going through your mind. You're not thinking about the magnitude and how cool. You're just thinking of the X's and O's. What do we have to do to execute to beat this team? We've seen in the past, like just because a team may be better on paper or have so much talent, it doesn't mean you're going to have the advantage on game day. There's so many things that go into it. So I think for those teams, if there's moves left to be made, you're thinking, what can you do now to one up and get a little bit better on your team, a roster? Maybe it's a player, maybe it's a trade, maybe it's a free agent that's still out there of what happens throughout OTAs and mini camps and stuff. So you're always thinking about ways to get better from the standpoint of the other teams in the NFC.
I have two philosophical questions to ask you about football as it concerns offense and defense. I think this will be like a little bit of maybe curveball from what we may generally do in an interview like this, right? So, you played defense, right? But you know the offensive side of the ball really well. So let's say you are an offensive coordinator or an offensive coach. It could be a team in the NFC West or a team that has to play the LA Rams. What is your, and again, like you knowing that Sean McVay kind of knows what you're probably going to do to try and get away from Myles Garrett or try and have a successful offense against this defense. What would your agnostic of who's on your team? What would the game plan be to attack this defense now with Myles Garrett rushing the passer?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with what are your strengths on the offensive side of the ball. as well. Let's just say if I'm McVay's offense going against McVay's defense right now, the fact that they have the weapons they have at the tight end position, I'd go out there and I'd try to put three tight ends on the field because now I have bigger bodies, especially on first and second down, around a guy like Myles Garrett and the rest of that defensive line. So it's more people for him to have to get through. Now, how do I disguise and move people during the play with motions and shifts and post snap to create advantages from a numbers standpoint in the run game? Because that's going to be key, because with what Myles can do on third down and what the rest of those guys, Braden Fisk and Byron Young and Kobe Turner, you don't want to end up in those third and long situations where now they can pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. So you want to be able to run the football and slow them down. And then there's going to be opportunities where you want to spread them out and get the ball out of your hands quick and not allow those 5-step, 7-step drops where they can really get pressure. So to me, it's about how do you scheme up and do things with movement up front to be able to create a numbers advantage. Because with Myles Garrett, I don't want to leave him in one-on-one situations, but maybe I can get a double team and then somebody else coming off and hitting him to be able to slow him down and bother him throughout the entire course of the game.
Now, on the flip side here, Jason, and I say this acknowledging, I agree with you, right? Like, no one can say with a straight face that the Rams are not right now the best team on paper or the most likely team to win. I acknowledge that. I think if you or me wanted to poke a hole in this team while acknowledging that they're still the favorite, right? I think you can say, and it's pretty accurate, they don't have a lot of speed on offense, right? Now, I think the way that they tried to mitigate that last year, and I love stuff like this, right? I know you do too, you played, the proliferation of the multi-tight end set, and how I think we're going to see a lot of teams copy that this year. So I think about Mike McDonald, right, the head coach of the Seahawks, or Raheem Morris, the defensive coordinator now of the Niners, and you played defense at a high level in the NFL. Do you think teams are going to be able to, now with a year of tape to study, be able to more shut down this multi-tight end, like the 12, 13 personnel that the Rams run here? Because I think if you can do that, you can maybe expose, and you know way more than maybe I'm wrong, maybe you can expose their lack of speed on offense. So what about that? Teams trying to slow down Parkinson and Higbee and Terrence Ferguson and now rookie Max Clare and all the tight ends.
To your point, Mike McDonald and company are watching every single Rams game throughout the course of this offseason and figuring out how to attack that. And it's not really about shutting it down. It's more about this offseason. How many different looks can we give that three tight end set? What now you go back and you crunch all of the numbers. What are the things that they like to do most out of? What slight things can you find where maybe the tight end's on a little bit or off a little bit that dictates maybe the type of route he's running, whether it's pass or run, all of those small nuances that you're trying to figure out. So I think for McVay, he's thinking the same thing. He's going back and he's watching all of the clips and the 13 personnel and all of those things with the three tight ends. And what can we do differently out of this? How else can we find ways to expose what defenses are going to attempt to do when we're going out there and preparing? I always look back when it comes in talking about Sean McVay to the Super Bowl I played in against him. And I remember the lead up to that game, all playoffs in the second half of the season, we decided, I remember during our bye week having a conversation with our cornerbacks coach, and he said, the strength of our team is in our secondary. Stephon Gilmore was a defensive player of the year caliber player. We had J.C. Jackson, who was a young up-and-coming star at the cornerback position at the time. Jonathan Jones, myself, and then the safeties we had. It was like, we're going to play man-to-man against everybody in your face, and we're going to give our D-line time to get home. We did that all throughout the playoffs to get to the Super Bowl. Week of the Super Bowl, we completely flipped it up and played all zone on first and second down. And I remember in that game, we got in at halftime and it was just like, all right, McVay's probably going to try to do these different things, and it never happened. So you're not going to catch him, to me, again, where he's not going to have an answer to something you're doing. And to your point, the speed, I've talked about a Brandon Cooks type of player who's out there, is available, a veteran, a guy that can stretch the field. They lost Tutu Atwell this offseason. Who's a guy that you can bring in that can get vertical and be able to spread the defense out and do some of those things?
So you think they can maybe it's Tyreek Hill. If Tyreek's able to go, maybe it's Brandon Cooks, who obviously had a tour of duty with the Rams already, played in that Super Bowl, right? So is it your expectation? I'm not asking for a prediction, but you would think that they would add, if they don't have one, they legitimately don't have a field stretching receiver right now, right?
And I think that's what like this time of the year is for. They're out there at OTAs. They're going to be out there at minicamp. Now you get the chance to go out there and evaluate what you do have. That's why you see so many veterans, the Debo Samuels, the Stephon Diggs, the Tyreek Hills of the world. Some of these guys that aren't signed yet because teams are looking at them, some of those guys as older players. So it's what do I have in my young guys throughout this springtime? And if we get through that and I don't like what I see, well, now I can go out there and sign one of these guys for training camp because I know they're getting ready and they're preparing on their own. So I do think that's they've already gone all in. They've done so many things to be able to go out there and win a Super Bowl this year. If they feel like they're a speedy wide receiver short, absolutely they're going to go out there and sign. Hell, they may try to make another trade to get a guy if they feel the necessity to do so. You don't make all of these moves and leave something blank that there's a question mark of whether you think you have enough at a certain position.
Couple more minutes with ESPN's Jason McCourty here on the show. You better, you bet. Nick Costos, Westwood One Sports. Jason, that leads us into an obvious question here. So on the show yesterday, I was actually surprised that a lot of people disagreed with me on this. Like, I understand the Ty Simpson pick, right? And how you want to make sure you have your quarterback of the future if you're going to trade all these picks. I guess it kind of feels like a half measure a little bit to me where, okay, like you want to be all in and you also want to have your quarterback of the future. You know, why not take, like if you want a speed receiver, why not take, I'm just using that as an example, Concepcion. Yeah. I look at this offensive line, it's not terrible, but seems a little flimsy. What about like Monroe Freeling? So I kind of looked at the Myles Garrett trade. Some people say you make the Garrett trade because you picked Ty Simpson. I look at it the other way. If you're going to make the Myles Garrett trade, then take someone that can help you win this year. Where are you at on this particular issue?
I hadn't thought about that. It's funny when the draft came up. I was kind of mad that they drafted Ty Simpson, not because of Ty Simpson the player, but because of where they were as a franchise. I'm like, go out and get somebody that's going to help Matthew Stafford win a Super Bowl right now. Worry about the quarterback later. I don't agree with you. I think the Myles Garrett move, you make up. I don't want to say make up for it, but you're able to successfully achieve both things. You're able to say, we're building for the future. So if we do go out there and win a Super Bowl this year, we're not facing a 5-12 season the year after and having to take time to get some of those draft picks and hit on guys like Puka Nacua, Byron
Can I
Young,
give you a
Kyren
counterpoint?
Williams.
Can I give you a counterpoint to that? If you win the Super Bowl, who cares?
Who cares?
And look, and people can disagree with that. I'm not saying I'm 100% right. That's just where my mind goes.
Yes. Do you remember the last time they won a Super Bowl? The rumors the following offseason was, is McVay going to TV? Does he still want to do this after that 5-12 season? So I think if you're McVay, I'm with you as far as if I'm a fan, I don't care what the next few years look like if I was able to go to the parade and act a fool and have a blast. But if I'm Sean McVay and I'm still putting in the same amount of hours, I'm missing time with my wife and my kids and all of those things. Hell, I want to chase the next Super Bowl. I want to talk about the Rams if I'm McVay the same way we talked about the Patriots for 2 decades where it felt like every single season they were going for it. So yes, you're going all in right now because you have an MVP quarterback who's 38 years old. You don't know how much longer he's going to play at an elite level. So you get a guy like Myles Garrett and whatever other pieces. But you believe in Ty Simpson enough that when he does walk away, all of those pieces you just used to build, hopefully can continue to get you over the edge and be a Super Bowl contender, because without Stafford's contract, you're still going to have more money to go out there and get other guys to build around your young quarterback.
You've been